Hey guys, hope everyone's doing good. I got the engine all apart from the car. Going to do a quick little walkthrough video, what I found. Maybe tell you guys a little bit about the engine. When I originally switched the car over from a small block pro-charged blow-through setup, I pieced together a 555 big block. It was a used block I picked up, used crank. I put new rods, new pistons in it. It was all decent stuff, but nothing crazy. And it had a major oiling issue that I just did not catch in time. I had a bunch of 8-mile passes on it. I basically went right into some quarter-mile passes, and it just did not end well. This is basically all I have left of it. I sold all the other pieces. Some of it was still usable. Someone could probably fix a lot of it, but it basically kicked a rod, wrapped itself around this rod, and locked up during a pass. Really was not a fun experience. I don't recommend you do that. It took me a little while to save up. I ended up buying the short block from Steve. It was just one of his 2,000 horsepower short blocks that you could buy off his website at the time. And it's a Dart iron big M block. I did go with billet caps. It's got a little bit better parts than the old one. It's got a good Crowler crank in it. It's got Oliver rods. Very similar pistons to the old motor. It ended up bending the cam, but I bought this exact same cam I had in the old motor. It did end up doing some damage to the cylinder head. You can see right there, bent a valve, broke a guide. I had to change the seats in this cylinder, but luckily I was able to salvage the cylinder head. So this motor is 540 cubic inches. It's a 4 1/4 stroke crank, 4.5 inch bore. Standard deck height, standard cam height, all that stuff. Pretty basic setup. Really just wanted something super reliable. So this motor, if you follow along on the channel, has been pretty good to me. I bought this in 2020, right when COVID was just starting, and really haven't had any major problems with it. I've had a couple issues with turbo debris going through it. It does have some oiling problems that I want to address now. I did end up wiping the thrust bearing out of this motor once, right after I first put it together, first put it back in the car. The converter charge pressure was just a bit too high, and basically wiped all the bearing material off, got right down to the bearing shell. Luckily I caught it early. I was able to, I basically just polished the crank in the car, rolled another main bearing in, and that main's been in there for the past, whatever, four years. So I'm really curious to get this motor apart because it's never been apart before, really. I think that every time you take a motor like this apart, you always find little things that you can fix and just make it better. Like I said, the oiling issue, basically, I believe it's like a drain back issue where it's not getting back to the pan fast enough. I've got a high volume pump and it's basically pumping the pan dry. I'm gonna do some things to address that, but let's take a look at everything else and see how it's holding up. So the crank obviously looks perfect. All the mains look really good. Thrust looks pretty well perfect. There's zero issues there. I checked the thrust clearance periodically, and it's been looking really good. These are the lower mains. You can see that a couple of them have a few rub marks near the edges, so I got to look into that a little bit, but again, looking really good. My old small block was right on the ragged edge basically, but the main caps were always walking around on it, and hard to get a good angle on it. But these things all look perfect. Nothing's moving around or anything. I have replaced a few rod bearings here and there. I put a whole set in it last winter, but rod bearings look really good, pretty well perfect. A couple little marks, probably just from stuff going through it, but they all look pretty well perfect. You could definitely just reuse those if you wanted to. Pistons look good. A couple little scuff marks, no big deal. But there is some marks between the top and second ring. Some of them Some of them are worse than others. This is probably one of the worst ones. I'm pretty sure, or I know that I'm just going to polish this up a little bit. That should be good. But part of the problem, I think, is the top rings are actually starting to come apart a little bit. You can see it right there. So these are a Molly ring. These are not actually what I wanted to put in this motor. You can see it's kind of flaking off all over the place. When I bought the short block, I did ask to upgrade the rings and the pins, which, long story short, lost in communication or something. Never happened. Not a big deal. It's definitely doing everything I want it to do, and still room to grow. So not a big deal, but those are not my choice of rings that I would have put in this. So that's one thing that I'm definitely going to be changing. So everything with the cam looks perfect. No issues there. Lifters all look perfect. All the rollers are good. All that stuff. I've checked all that. Valve train wise, again, no issues. I've really had no issues with the valve train on this motor. All the lash caps are perfect. All the rollers, trunnions, everything on the rockers are good. Yeah, I am running a stud mounted rocker with stud girdles. I've had zero issues with this setup. It's worked really well for me. I think I've done videos where I've checked the lash and everything, and so far at this point, working really well. So cam bearings, everything cam bearing wise looks good. One thing that I do notice is the top edge of the cam bearing here. You can probably just barely see it, but it's definitely rubbing on the cam gear. So I don't know, it's in there pretty well flush, and it actually overhangs on the inside. So I don't think it's an issue where, you know, the bearing's not in far enough. I don't know exactly what the issue is yet, but I do plan on kind of addressing that. You can kind of see, probably hard to pick up in here, but right on this diameter of the cam gear, it's definitely rubbing there. So I don't know, I'm gonna pop this bearing off. I don't know if I can maybe just shim the bearing out a little bit, or maybe I'll cut a little off the gear. But another little problem that we're gonna look after. The bores look pretty good, but there's definitely some room for improvement here. There's some, looks like water stains, and maybe just starting to pit a little bit. Again, it's probably hard to pick up. That one you can definitely see. Like, I can't feel it really. I mean, I can feel it, but it's not like it's bumped way out or anything. It's mostly just stained, but it is starting to pit a little bit. This one's got quite a bit near the bottom. I think that is probably just a maintenance thing. I've really got to look at doing something differently when I'm not running the car. I know a lot of guys actually fog the engine and stuff, and I think I'm going to look into doing something like that. So I'll just clean the bores up, and should be good to go there, but I definitely want to try and get a better handle on that. So short block wise, other than the oil pump, which I'm probably going to change, everything looks really good. So move on to head gaskets. So these heads have not been off since I originally put them on, and the gaskets look perfect. One little mark right there where maybe it's just moving around just a little tiny bit. You can see the other side of that mark on the cylinder head. You can't feel it or anything. It hasn't wore into it or anything, so really can't be moving that much. But head gasket wise, they look perfect. Really happy with that. So next thing is onto the cylinder heads. I was really expecting to see a lot worse, a lot more wear on the valves, just from running methanol. I do run top lube and everything, but I've always heard it's really hard on valves and valve guides. But all the valves look really good. There's a little, maybe a little bit of, little tiny bit of wear up where the keepers go. But I'm really happy with how all this looks. Valve guide wise, this is another thing I was really worried about. I figured I might have to put guides in the heads. They did seem a little loose, just wiggling them. I ended up making this kind of a pin gauge just out of the end of a drill bit. It's all I really had. But I did want to get a quick answer on this, see if they were good. So this is about 1 thou bigger than the valve stem, and it just barely fits in there. You almost got to put a little bit of pressure on it to get it to go in. It definitely does not slide in. So valve guides will be staying. I won't have to do anything with those at this point. And the only issue I did see on the cylinder heads and the valves was this cylinder right here. So intake valve, and if you look at the pattern, it is basically not touching for about 1 inch there. And this is the valve. You can see it right there pretty much. So that's another thing that I'll do. I'll make sure I get that corrected. But cylinder head wise, all the keepers, retainers, springs, everything looked good there. And the only other thing I want to address in the heads is the drain back holes. I think I've talked about them before. You've also got this giant boss here that they've so nicely engraved their name into. And basically when you pull the valve covers off this motor, this is usually all full of oil because it can't really, the angle that it's on in the car, the oil really can't get past here. So this is another area that I'm going to look at, see if I can maybe hog that out a little bit. Do some work there. I just got to do a little bit of research and see if that's actually doable. And obviously do valve seals, all that stuff. But yeah, heads are looking good. Intake gaskets kind of came apart as I took it, as I pulled the intake, but I really did not see any issues there. They look like they're all sealed up really nice. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, everything looks really good, I think. A couple little tiny issues to deal with. Piston rings, the cam bearing, the one intake valve, and get a bit better handle on the maintenance so the cylinder bores stay in a bit better condition. And obviously the oiling issue, which, like I say, we're gonna work on the drain back, probably gonna change the pump. I wouldn't mind changing the pan and just add a couple more liters to the pan. But basically that's it, I think. So I'm gonna start, I already kind of started cleaning the block. I'm gonna start cleaning the cylinders up, get that finished up. I know I mentioned in the last video, I was gonna go for a road trip to Summit. So I ended up doing that, hit the Summit in Ohio, and basically picked up everything that I didn't have already to put the motor back together. I got new rings. I already had a full set of mains. I got new rod bearings, new head gaskets, obviously all that stuff. Main reason I went to Summit was to pick up a new hood. It would cost me more to ship this hood than it is to buy it. So this is a Harwood hood. I really wanted a Sunoco style hood when I originally bought all the fiberglass parts, but I couldn't really get one. This is a little higher than I wanted. This is a 6-inch. I really wanted a 4, but Harwood doesn't make one. I've always run Harwood hoods on all my other cars, and the quality is just always really good. Like this hood is really straight everywhere. Like really, you could probably just scuff this hood and paint it. The only downfall that I did notice is it does feel a little bit heavier than my VFN hood. So I'm gonna weigh those and see what the difference is. As long as I get this hood to fit up nice, this is what's going on it. So that's all I got for you guys. Any questions about the teardown or anything about the engine, just throw it up there in the comments. I'll answer whatever you guys throw up there. And yeah, we'll get this thing back together. So thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, do me a favor, hit that button. I'll try and get some more videos up sooner than later. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.